1, 2, 1, 2. Before we get started, today is going to be a slightly longer review than normal. Today we're doing one of those crazy unboxings. So, without further ado, I'll unbox and explain. Oops. Box A, Box B. See my little girl has been stressing me about this for some time. And she'd been stressing me about trying to get this set up for a birthday party. So I thought, you know what? I'm going to order two of the ones that look the best and also at the most reasonable price. Unbox them in front of you all so that you can sort of make an informed decision and also see how I go in my own fare. I'll do some recipes and I'll discuss as we go. So this is the first part of the review, which is the unboxing. Let me find a trusty unboxing knife. This should do it. Partially, I think, already broken, but just to make sure. Okay, so in front of the camera, what do we have? Box number one. Ooh. This is massive. Now I'll explain what this is in a moment and I'll explain the differences. So what happened was I ordered one of these. This looked very big online. Okay, the measurements seemed like they were going to be something of significance and it looked like it was going to be something special. But looking at it, this will probably eat that 3 times and still have some change. We're going to unbox this as well so that people can see what it comes with. This is a lot smaller. Okay, no book with that one, or at least no book that I can see. Okay. So my daughter has been hounding me for these products for some time, since her birthday party is coming up. So I wanted to see what the unboxing experience is like. And pretty much this is what the unit looks like. I'm guessing that's the fountain part of it, and I'm guessing that's the mixer part of it, like a whisk sort of thing. And this is where the unit and everything else attaches. This baby little thing, as I said, this looks like it'll eat it 3 times and have this for breakfast. So from my understanding, oops, okay, I can't tell. Let me first put this in, just so that to be on the same wavelength. I'm guessing either these clip on to something. I think that's the way it's supposed to go. Alright. So, just so that we can clarify, so that we know what we're doing, we've got instructions. This book seems like it's fairly thick, decent quality book. Important precautions. I'm not too worried about that. Thank you for purchasing the chocolate fondue fountain. This chocolate fountain creates a cascade of sweetness that will add mouth-watering fun for any occasion. Your friends, your friends and family will enjoy snacks, appetizers, desserts with the chocolate fondue fountain. Please take care of your machine by following these simple instructions. You can use a variety of chocolates and sauces with your chocolate fondue fountain to create the flavor that you desire. Try the following: milk chocolate, dark semi-sweet chocolate, white chocolate and butterscotch. Dip strawberries, marshmallows, apple wedges, pretzels, cookies, ice cream bowls, peanut butter bowls. Use your imagination. Add liquors and sophisticated flavors. You can also melt cheese to create a cheese fondue fountain. Dip grapes, apples, breads, crackers, pretzels. Use your imagination once again. In order to use cheese, you just need to prepare the cheese as you would for a regular fondue pot by diluting it with some white wine or cream to keep it liquid, enabling it to flow through the towel. Powdered cheese may be used as well. Barbecue sauces may also be used. Try your favorite barbecue sauce. Dip cooked chicken cubes, beef, steak cubes, and pork cubes, etc. Or shrimp. Keep in mind the consistency of the sauce needs to be thin. Use wine, liquor, or liquids to thin out the sauce. The chocolate fondue is an addition to any dining room table and an impressive display at events such as weddings, birthdays, barbecues, graduation parties, birthday meetings, holidays, casual gatherings, and etc. So the parts here, it says we've got a tower, auger or auger, I'm not sure how you enunciate that, bowl, and a base. Basically, operating instructions. One side here is the motor, and one side controls the heat. Now, with this one, from what I can see, you've got heat and heat motor. So you've got both at the same time. We'll talk about, the recipes and everything else as we go. But what I wanted to do is just do the basic unboxing experience and also just talk about cleaning a little bit. To prolong the life of this fondue fountain, be sure to follow cleaning instructions after every use. Never use anything abrasive on the base to maintain the original finish. Make sure the unit is unplugged before cleaning. Allow parts to cool, to touch. Tower, auger, and base can be very hot. Before first use and continue after each use, be sure to wash the tower and auger thoroughly. Avoid washing parts in the dishwasher. To make the cleaning of the chocolate fountain easier, carefully remove the tower and auger after cooling and wipe off any remaining chocolate with paper towels. Wash in warm soapy water and rinse dry. Be careful, pour out as much remaining chocolate from the bowl as possible. Use non-abrasive damp sponge or cloth to wipe clean the rest of the unit. Then wipe with non-abrasive towel to dry. Do not pour out any excess or leftover chocolate down any drain. Pour it into a plastic bag or disposable container, then put it in the garbage. Recipes, again, it talks a few things. Orange chocolate, mixing orange liquor and concentrate, hazelnut as well, amaretto, creme de menthe, chocolate de coconut for macaron, or macaroon, chocolate liquor for any brand of chocolate liquor. To burn the alcohol off the liquor prior to mixing the liquor with the chocolate, measure out a quarter cup of liquor, more or less depending on the taste, and pour it into a small cooking pot. Cook the liquor on the stove and bring it to boil. Mix the liquor with the choice of chocolate before adding it to the chocolate fountain. So we'll talk about the ingredients that you as an adult can add to this if it's not going to be for a child's occasion. But for now, let's worry about the kids first. and see how this actually functions. From the menu, from what I can see, it says BD019. So that's the serial number for that. This is the mini chocolate fondue fountain. Melted hot chocolate all the time. So we're going to prepare the chocolate and prepare all the ingredients and then walk you through the process, so that way this is not going to be an unboxing only. It's going to be an unboxing. We're going to test the unit out, and then we're going to do the review right at the very end, and I'll let you guys know if this is a go or this is a no. I'll let you guys know in a minute. We'll clean it up a little bit just so that we can get it prepared, and then we'll go through the process of actually preparing it and actually putting it through its first trial. I expect there to be a bit of a burnt smell or something like that on any new appliance, especially things with an element, but hopefully this is going to come out good. Be right back with you.
Okay, so as you can see in this video, I start off with just random chocolate. I went and I found some store-bought chocolate or cooking chocolate, and I had to actually get rid of the audio because the original audio was very loud. But I'll quickly tell you what I did. I found a saucepan, I found some cooking chocolate, both white and white chocolate, milk chocolate, and regular dark chocolate, just so that way I've got a good blend. In it, I added, as the chocolate was melting in the saucepan and I was sort of looking for consistency, I added some coconut oil just to not only add to the viscosity and sort of lighten up the texture. We don't always know how good chocolate quality is, so you always sort of try to mix it in such a way that when you actually do add it into the fountain in itself, at least that way it's liquid enough for it to move. And as you can see in the video now, it's starting to sort of turn and sort of get the I guess the bit that swirls the machine and sort of helps propel everything upwards do its thing. So the reason why I sort of removed the audio is because the audio at the end of the day would make a lot of noise, and I was surrounded by quite a few people. And so what I didn't want to do is have kids screaming in the background. I will play back some of the stuff, or at least that way you catch a few kids in the birthday environment, etc., in a few minutes' time. But for now, as you can see, you start to see, the chocolate find its sort of consistency, and as it starts to drip down on the rest of the tiers of the fountain, what's happening is the tiers of the fountain themselves are warm, because you don't want it to be cold, because obviously you want this to stay consistent. I had brought a second chocolate fountain for the cheese and the dips, so we'll get into that, and that's why you can see corn chips in the background of that video, and some flour and things like that. You add those into the cheese. I will explain that later. But slowly but surely you're trying to get it to warm up and at the same time get the consistency happening. Now initially everything was still a little bit tough because the chocolate that I had some chips in it. And so because it had some chips, it took a while to get consistent, but also at the same time, the machine started warming up and also just sort of getting the consistency right. So I'm stirring up as much as I can just so that way it keeps flowing and it keeps sort of going through the spiral effect and eventually smooths itself out. But obviously now the machine is at its warmest, and now the flow is definitely building up. I think at some point the actual original audio of the particular day will cut in soon. And then I will stop talking, and then you guys can sort of get a chance of what the background was like, or at least what was happening around me at that particular time. Because again, I'm now at my friend's place having a party. Now, there are going to be two different videos across this review, because it was actually two parties. One is me just working on the shelf space, as you can see kids here, and then the other one is now when we actually lay it down on a proper table and sort of do all that.
Word to the wise, always make sure you lay down some napkins when you do this kind of stuff, because it can get messy when people take some. The fountain did come out really good. The issue was some of it still had some choc chips in it. I chose the wrong chocolate that came with a few chips, so that's why it's not as 100% smooth. But all in all, everything is all good.
And then you can see us sort of dipping fruits and marshmallow. Usually that's really what the end objective is here. Usually you just make as many, you get a good fruit salad, slice up everything, and people will dip as they go, throw in a bit of marshmallow, etc. It's definitely something where you're going to need a bit of a playground outside for kids to burn off that excess energy, because boy, oh boy, will they be in heaven eating all this chocolate. The ladies tend to love it too. And then you can actually see me eating it with a little skewer in hand as I was away somewhere else. So you guys can actually get to see my reaction to it as I go. And then you can see some ladies that were there, slices of banana and any kind of fruit that they could find. And they were pretty happy with what was going on. But at this point, people had massacred a lot of the fruit and they were loving it too. So people were now just coming in and dipping. But like I said, this was at another party after we sort of had it. I just didn't have the footage. This is where the smaller machine falters. The smaller machine just cannot keep the cheese or the heat, even for chocolate, consistent enough, and that's why I'm sort of going back and forth. And also, these machines are bigger, and that's why I ended up buying a secondary one after sort of discovering that it was useless. The small one was useless. And so I was going back and forth to show and to also just highlight the flow. And again, like I said, hearing kids sort of get excited and things like that is always a good vibe. And look at how smooth that particular chocolate was, simply because that chocolate didn't actually have any chips. But the cheese, it just sort of hardened up and I unplugged it because it was a waste of time. The machine was no longer spiraling, it was actually burning out. And I just said, you know what? A lesson learned on that particular small machine. Never cheap out, spend a little bit extra, and you get something better. These are from Amazon, by the way. The generic Amazon brand was excellent, as you can see. I think it was just a third-party seller, whereas the smaller little machine, I think, had a bit of a name to it. I'll add all of these into their particular links, but after this particular video, people can get to see the extended version of me actually making the cheese at home, which will follow suit in a little bit. But I just thought I would sort of highlight, what the party was like.
I always tell people, when it comes to this, nah, dog, don't waste your money. Sorry.
So, I'm going to put my final thoughts on these two particular products. You have one product that's a little bit cheaper, a lot smaller, and just not really well made. It is plasticky. It doesn't do the job that it's actually supposed to do. Everything gets clumpy, etc. And then you've got something that you can pay a little bucks for a little buck extra, but something that will last you. It's made out of stainless steel. You can wash it properly to clean it, and it will probably take a bit more of a beating. I've even bought a second one, which I ended up giving to a friend of mine for their wedding, which they managed to use and do some stuff with. So I completely recommend one product and I don't support the other product. And this is not about disparaging other people. Hopefully they will see this review and maybe potentially try to do a better job in manufacturing these things for people, as this is about saving people money but also getting people the best bang for their buck. With that being said, after this, quick final thoughts. You guys can watch a bit more of an extension of the video where I actually attempt to make cheese or dip, I think, for something else, another particular function that was happening at the time. Whereas you guys have seen basically a quick summary of what the chocolate scenario looks like. You guys can watch that video or you can stop the video here. This is just bonus footage. Thank you very much for watching and catch you on the next one. Ciao.
Hello, how are you? Welcome back to another video. In fact, That's not fair. This video, as far as I'm concerned, is a time skip. I was supposed to be reviewing one of these. I was supposed to be reviewing one of these boxes, but as you can see, I've had a change of clothes. It's maybe a day or two later. Essentially what was supposed to happen here is the plan was to go to a kids party and actually test out the unit itself as the party was going on. But as you can imagine, the party ended up being not only a party for an adult but also a party for a kid. So because people were not feeling very well collectively, we just decided to combine the parties in one. So as you can imagine, the background noise and all the stuff that will be going on during a party, we just decided to put a hold on the recording. And I thought to myself, you know what, having a second person with me as we do the cooking and preparing process would have been excellent. But unfortunately, it didn't pan out that way just because we ended up all getting busy. There's not enough floor room for you to get set up, have the proper lighting and everything else happening. So what we're going to do, much like the pie maker review that I did almost a month ago, we're going to do the review live. And yes, I actually was dressed up. Obviously, I went on an occasion assuming that it was an adult's party, so I dressed up smart casual, you know. But obviously because there was an element of children in there also, you kind of had to be a little bit loose. But also being where we are at the moment in Melbourne, being very cold, I just decided, hey, let's do the review and then do time skips, and then I'll do the cheese aspect of it today live. And then what we'll do is we'll fill in the gaps. We'll fill in the gaps with the cheese, because I think that some people might like the sweet stuff, but some people want something a bit more savory, something with a bit more kick, and hopefully we'll be able to come up with something today. So this is not going to take too long in this particular format. This is more of a vlog style review than what I'll do simply just by sitting down and unboxing. So pardon the quality, or if you don't feel like there's enough production values, my apologies in advance. As I said, we're going to try to do this live. So bear with me as we get into my kitchen. My kitchen is a little bit busy, so I'm going to warn you in advance. Alright, so as you can see, or at least I'm going to try my best to make this easy to see, because I need to stand in front of the camera as well. As you can see, I have the unit itself. That's the fountain. Oops. I think they call this the auger or ogre. I'm not sure. Again, learning just like everybody else. So anyone who knows, you can comment or leave it in the comments and give us a rough idea of what to expect. But really what we're looking at, if we're going to make this a cheese fountain, okay, we're looking at 3 primary ingredients. One of the ingredients being anything. I just chose whatever full cream milk that was left over from the party. I don't have too much cheese because, again, I'm not lactose. Again, me and lactose aren't necessarily the best of friends. I was going to say I'm not lactose friendly. I'm not necessarily intolerant, but it's not always necessarily my bag. But what I have here is just some grated cheese, basically. It could be finely grated, it could be just regular shredded cheese. I had a big bag that I bought for the review because I assumed we were going to be using it at the party, but this is what I ended up just taking, just a smaller bag. This is one of your friends, irregardless of whether you're making chocolate or you're not, you're going to need a bit of coconut oil. I think that's the best because it sort of tells you also if the machine is heating up or no. This is going to be one of the friends. And a little bit of flour. Now, I don't have it right in front of me. I'll grab it from a shaker or something, but a little bit of salt just for taste is what we're going to need. But these are your core ingredients right here. So I'm just going to get ready and then we'll suss it out. Obviously, we're going to need a little saucepan just to do what we need to do. And I'm going to get the stovetop ready and then we can go from there. Hopefully you all will be able to see. I'm actually cooking some other things in the background. I just put them on low heat. So hopefully that angle is friendly. try and see if I can get some lighting happening, just so that you can see a bit of lighting as we do this, just so that we don't cast too much shadow in the mix. If not, I'll get something else for us to help us see what we're doing. Be with you in a sec. There we go. We've got a bit more light now, so hopefully you all will be able to see better. Hopefully it doesn't cast too much of a shadow, or it doesn't overshadow. In fact, maybe I'll move it a little bit closer so that way people can actually see what the hell is going on. So, what we have here is we've got just a simple saucepan. The knobs on this old stove are faded, so pardon them. I'll put this not too high. I'll leave that heating up for a second. I'll take a teaspoon of virgin oil. Actually, not a teaspoon. I'm just going to take an old ice cream spoon and just use some of that, because I'm not really trying to put too much. I just want it to get to a certain heat, because once we know that it's at a certain heat, it'll start to melt. That's why I said that this stuff is our friend, because it lets us know. Maybe a plastic spoon wasn't a great idea. I'll find something else. Maybe I'll just take another spoon. And use that. How's that? Alright. So while that's going on this side, and we're figuring that part out, what we want is to also start preparing some of these ingredients. For example, as I mentioned before, the cheese. Okay, like I said, this is not too much cheese, because again, I'm not really going to eat this, so I would feel guilty for throwing away food. Okay, so I'll put that on the side for a second. And we're going to put our flour, and we're going to put our milk on the side. Now, as you can see, slowly it's melting, so because I put it on not necessarily high heat, but hot enough to get things going as quickly as possible, because I'm not trying to drag the video way too long. As this, I want you to picture this is going to be happening at a party, so what you are trying to do is get your equipment as ready as possible, when possible, so that you can get the machine itself going. So while that oil is melting, I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the machine. One thing I'll warn you before we go further, you need to be careful when handling this part of the unit. Because some edges, while perfectly filed properly, some edges might stick out. Like one side is okay, but I think the machine during the filing process wasn't perfect, so it'll end up slicing a bit of your finger if you're not careful. So just be careful when you're putting this bit in, because this is the bit that mixes the other bit. Okay, so as you all can see, that's melting, and so what we're going to do is we're going to put all this in. Okay, this is just a small packet, but I think that if you're going to be doing this at a party, you're probably going to need 500 grams or something like that. Because the big packet that I had was seriously heavy shredded cheese that was probably more for a pizza base or anything like that. But any cheese should work. It's just that obviously it being grated just makes it a little bit easier. You're going to put some milk in there. Usually they say put a little bit of milk, but I'll say that because we want it runny and smooth and we want it to melt, I would say put a fair bit of milk in there. For now I'll put that much, and if we see if it's not melting enough or it's not liquid enough, hopefully it's going to have enough volume to actually run in a fountain. Obviously, if we need to be, for illustrative purposes, we'll add a bit more. And again, not drinking too much milk. I don't want to waste any food, but I don't have anybody here with me, so we're just going as we go. Pardon the food that's cooking in the background. That's just breakfast for the week, so I like to cook in bulk. So while that's happening, normally they say grab about a tablespoon, I would say, of flour. So I've got some square tablespoons here. So I'll just take some. I don't think it really matters what sort of flour it is. I think it's just to give it maybe texture of some kind. You're not going to. Again, this doesn't have to be a perfect measurement. You're not going to hear me tell you whether it's heaped or you know, you scoop off a little bit at the top. It doesn't really matter. I think it's just meant to be to help maybe the consistency or something like that. And we also talked about a little bit of salt. So what I do is I'll grab a bit of table salt. Again, just for taste. Some people maybe want to put Tabasco or whatever it is that they're going to put. Cool, great. So I put about that much salt. It's not too much. Say maybe the equivalent of a teaspoon. So that aspect of it, done. So what we're going to do is we're going to just wait for this to start heating up, maybe get to a slight boil, and then hopefully that should melt everything. I can feel the heat coming in. Again, I didn't put it too high. I put it maybe two spaces before, because I didn't want it to get too hot too quickly, as it's cheese and might stick at the bottom. But we'll leave that there. While that's preparing itself, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn the focus to the other unit, which is the machine itself, and we can start doing some prep. Again, I'm my own cameraman, so pardon me, or pardon the transitions if that makes any sense. So in terms of preparing the machine, as y'all can see with this unit, right, you've got on and off for the motor. The arrow is pointing downwards, so that arrow should probably be pointing here. Again, probably doesn't matter, as long as it's not pointing here, it's all good. So that's pointing on the off position, that's pointing off position as well for the heat. The little arrows are here. So what we would normally do is, like I said, once again, we'll grab a spoon, right? And we'll take just a little bit. Like I said, this is your friend. You're going to notice that there's a correlation between this coconut oil that I'm using here and obviously making the chocolate, or you would have seen it by the time, because I'm probably going to put the chocolate recipe first, because obviously when people think of a chocolate fountain, the first thing they're thinking about is the chocolate fountain usage, and then the fondue and all that other stuff later. So what I say that normally prepare this is just to make sure that the heat is actually working. So what we want is to put it on this angle. That will come on, and once that comes on, it will start heating up the unit in the dish aspect, right? So while that heats up and starts to prepare and starts to melt, as you can see, it actually heats up quite quickly. What you do is you put in this stick, or the auger or auger, whatever, again, how you enunciate it, sorry. And then what you try to do, try to get that to go down all the way. And once it reaches its apex, it should sit in the middle, and that should be mixing at the top. Again, you're not going to be able to see the top at the moment because I haven't boosted it up too high, but that's basically how it's probably going to sit. Okay, and usually what then happens is when the motor starts spinning, when you turn the knob, obviously, that's what's going to start happening. So we're not there yet. So, but like I said, the instructions, very simple. Be careful when handling that because it does get hot. Right now it's still cool to the touch, but eventually it does get hot. And as a bonus, what I'll do is I'll actually show you guys how to clean this up, because I think that's going to be important. But remember what I said, be careful even when cleaning it up, when handling these bits, because it does cut. I know firsthand because something happened and it wasn't fun. I'm not going to lie to you. So I'm just going to make sure that lines up. Yeah, There we go. Feels right. All right. So while that's in there heating up, as you can see, it's starting to melt. There's still a little bit left. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to our friend here, which is the cheese. As right now it's heating up quite a fair bit. I'm going to add a bit more milk in there just to make sure that this is not lumpy or anything. We want it as smooth as possible. Again, bear in mind that you're cooking this for people to eat and enjoy. So what we're going to try to do is just mix that up. Make it look like a porridge sort of thing, but we want it as smooth as possible. We want it over the heat. We want it nice and smooth, no lumps. Hopefully this is going to be enough. If not, like I said, I'm just going to add milk for illustrative purposes, because when you guys are cooking it on your own, you're probably going to make it in volume. As I said, you can make this with all kinds of stuff. You could add Tabasco, you could add, you know, a few other things if you want. Some people will say, hey, maybe let's make some buffalo wings, but let's make a sauce. You know, you could do that. As long as you make sure that the consistency is nice and smooth, you should be good to go. So I just want that to heat up a little bit more, and once that heats up a little bit more, we're going to transfer it to the unit, and then the unit itself will tell us. I'm just making sure that any bumps or any rough edges, I'm going to just spread them in this corner, push them here until that sort of smooths itself out. Just help it smooth out. Again, I'm using the wrong spoon probably for this. I should be using a bigger spoon to dish out things. Again, just to show for illustrative purposes, I want this as smooth as possible. I might not achieve that. Again, I feel bad because I'm going to have to toss most of this out, as like I said, me and milk, we are not the best of friends. So I try my best to minimize. I should have even found some lactose milk, lactose-free milk, sorry. There we go. So that's feeling a little bit better. A few lumps in there. Hopefully those will smooth it out. Okay, so at this point, okay, very cheesy. I just put it on my tongue. Very cheesy. Not necessarily the smoothest, but that's not what I'm too worried about. Because for all illustrative purposes, you could take this and put it in a blender and you'd still be good. Just making sure this machine is hot enough. I'm not sure if the machine is quite hot enough yet. I'll let this bubble a little bit. Because the pan here, I'm not feeling the heat as much, but I can see that things have started to melt already, so that's a good sign. Please don't let that boil too much. Some vegetables in there. That's starting to bubble, which I think that is perfect at that point. I think that that's the right sort of heat. Once it's simmering, I think that's the right heat. So what we're going to do is we're going to transfer this over to the unit, and then y'all can see firsthand what we're working with here. So let's bring some lights. Ooh, there we go. Brighten up the spot a little bit, just so that y'all can see. Hope it doesn't shine too much. So normally I would say pouring it in would be that way. Try your best not to make a mess, which I will explain in a minute as well, how to prevent a mess. That might not be enough. So if it's not enough, I'll find out in a second. If it's not enough, what we'll do is we'll do one for illustrative purposes. But now, because the heat is already up and going, how we know that the heat is on is because things will melt. What we want is to use this. So the moment that starts spinning, stuff is supposed to start coming right up at the top, as you all can see, and almost immediately, depending on how smooth your consistency is, the fountain aspect of it is going to kick in. Now, one thing that I always try to tell people when doing this, especially because again people are going to be dipping, and I don't have the skewers with me. I wish I brought them. I really totally forgot about them. But one thing I'll always tell people is lay down some sort of napkin on the base of your unit. I'll show you all in a minute. Just have to move the ring, some things out here. I'll tell people every single time, lay down some napkins. I'd recommend laying down some napkins that way, around the machine, front, back, wherever it is that you think people are going to be dipping and doing all that stuff from. Like I said, be careful when handling this. It's not as hot as yet for me, so I'm just making an example. But normally what's supposed to happen is there's supposed to be enough consistency in there. So what we will do for illustrative purposes is let's add some milk. Okay, let's add some milk in there, and that should in turn increase the volume that will start pumping up from the top. Hell, I could even add some milk up in here. Just for fun's sakes, just to give us an idea of what to do. So once that fixes itself up, like I said, it's a little bit lumpy. Let's wait and see. Hopefully stuff will start coming up at the top, and hopefully we'll get the consistency that we're looking for. That's taking a little longer. I don't know if you can... No, that just switches the motor off. Okay. I thought maybe there was 2 levels or something. I'm hoping for any time now. Any time now. Maybe I need more liquid in there. Alright, and maybe add a bit more and see how we go. Because again, this is just for illustrative purposes. This is not the recipe, so I don't want people coming and shooting me in the comment section. So let's add some more. Maybe I wasn't supposed to pour more at the top, I don't know. Maybe I did something wrong. Give me 1 second. I'll leave the heat on, lift that up and see what we can do. As you can hear, there's a bit of a sound that it's making that tells you that the heat is definitely working. Let me just have a quick look. Please don't tell me you're stuck. There we go. Alright, so we've got that. It's in. It's not stuck or anything, so I wonder why. I might have to pour up some of the liquid. No, I think that's better. We're back in now. So let's put that machine back on and let's see what happens. It's spinning, I can feel it. Yep, it's spinning. So I'm just going to wash my hands about that. Normally the water is supposed to just come straight up and things should be good to go. Might be too lumpy, I'm not sure, I don't think so. If it doesn't work in the next minute or two, what I'll do is I'll pour the sauce out and pour it back in a minute. Because at the top there, this is what y'all are supposed to be seeing. So, and I can see liquid moving around clearly, so it must be pumping it up. Maybe it's just waiting to get the consistency right. And we'll go from there. While that's happening, I'm washing my hands and removing my rings because I'm struggling to get them off. Alright, so it's taken a minute to get that up. Initially we had it coming up no problem. So what I'm going to do So I'm going to switch that off for a second. I'm going to switch the machine off for a second. Pour the sauce out. Okay, so holding the wrong part. I'm going to hold this for a second. Right, this is how you normally would disassemble. So I'm going to put this in the sink for a minute. I'm going to take this, put that in the sink for a minute. I'm going to take the base. Like I said, careful when handling this because it might be hot, especially depending on how many minutes or hours you've been using it. The duration obviously is going to affect the outcome a lot, significantly. So I'm going to put that up for a second. I'm going to tip the sauce up for 1 second. Because maybe something is stuck in there that we don't know. Maybe the rough stuff was blocking something. And then while that's happening, like I said, be careful spilling. Obviously it's going to happen because again, between people, kids, adults and kids, everyone wants to play with the snack. Like I said, make sure that everything lines back up. Then I'll show you all anyway at some point how to actually clean this, because obviously that's going to be a nightmare. Actually, maybe put the stick in first, just so that people can actually see. So you line that up like that. Make sure everything is nice and sorted. I'm going to just put some water through this. Very hot indeed. Alright, so then I press that back down, get it back into the fixed position. So normally, as I said before, heat one side and obviously the motor, and then from there I guess we start pouring the sauce. And normally the sauce should rise up. I'm waiting. Let's give it a second and let's see. Hopefully this is not going to take too long, because again we had chocolate running through and we had no problem with it. So I will tell you straight up from the weekend that it was working. If anything, it was working too well. Just doesn't want to come up. I don't know what's going on. Don't know what's going on. Let me try pour some at the top. Let's see. That helps. I'll be able to let you know in a minute. Maybe it's too thin, I'm not sure. There could actually be a bit of sense in that, of what I'm saying. Maybe it's too thin. I didn't think about that. Give me 1 second. Again, because I didn't have enough cheese, maybe it's too thin. So because it's watery, it's just flowing back down. So it needs to have some level of resistance. All right, so if it needs some level of resistance, I'm going to add some flour into that just to thicken it up a little bit. And then we'll come back and we'll talk about it. Oops, I spilled so much everywhere. That's going to be a mess to clean up. Lucky I'm going to be the one to clean it up. Yay. Alright, so if it's too thick, well, I mean if it's too thin, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a bit of flour because I don't have anything else to thicken it up with. Alright, let's make sure there's nothing sticking at the bottom. I'm just going to put it on the stove top. I'm going to add a little bit of flour. We'll get it correct, and once we get it correct, 100%. I want people to see how to actually use it because I don't want people coming back and saying, you recommended something and it didn't work. It wouldn't be fair on the customer as well. Alright, so I'm back and now it's a lot more thicker. Okay, now obviously this is now just a lot more flour than it would have been cheese. But naturally what we're trying to do is we're just substituting the flour for cheese. But the reality is when you're cooking, obviously you're going to have a lot more cheese going on because you're feeding quite potentially a lot more people than the small sample packet that I just taken. But obviously because I put a little bit of milk and then ended up adding a fair bit of milk, it wasn't as thick anymore. It was a lot more watery. I thought that making it a lot more watery would help because with chocolate it starts off fairly hard and then you have to sort of melt it and make it a lot more smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to add now, and hopefully we should get the effect that I'm looking for. It's coming up. Exactly. So my apologies once again, my mistake. What's supposed to happen is it's supposed to come in a little bit thick, almost porridge-like, and then what will start happening is it will start producing the results that we want. So when it's thick, the machine will get a chance to actually move things in, and then what's going to happen is you're going to start getting the fountain effect. It takes a few minutes, of course, and it takes a certain amount in the pot itself, or in the base of the unit itself. So it takes a minute for it to start actually pumping out what it needs to pump out. So that's a bit thicker. It takes a few minutes. While that's doing that, I'll be cleaning up so that way you guys can actually see it in real time as it actually starts getting its bearings together. If you need to help it along a little bit, you can. But for the most part, it should be good. I don't think it needs any help really. I'm just trying my best to make sure that things are mixing up properly. Because this is similar, because I did this with the chocolate as well. I'm just checking to make sure it's mixing properly, nothing stuck at the top. It should keep pushing things through. Yeah, it keeps increasing in height, so clearly sooner rather than later. It's probably just getting... But normally what's supposed to happen is, like I said, almost immediately all this will start spreading and it becomes the proper fountain feature. So that, like I said, it takes a bit of time and a bit of consistency, but once it gets there, it gets there. And it's about finding the right balance. With chocolate, what I see is normally when you're mixing it up, you keep adding you keep adding the coconut oil till it's a little bit smoother. With this, on the other hand, because it's actually completely the opposite end of things, it's a lot more smoother or a lot more harder to get it going. I think I may have made stuff too thick. Now it doesn't want to move. But you have to find the right consistency yourself, and just use your best judgment to get it to get going. Because me, I'm just adding water now for illustrative purposes because I just wanted to get to the fountain aspect of it so that way people can actually see. Like I said, I don't want it to be too watery like last time where it becomes too thick for it to actually do the job that we want it to do. Exactly. Now I think it's the right mix. That creamy feel is what we want. Exactly. Much better now. I don't think now we're cooking with gas now. I'm just helping it along at the bottom. Of course, once it starts and it's good to go. Better, I think, yeah. I think the consistency was wrong. Too thick, initially too thin, and too thick. Just helping it mix up a little bit. And it will do the mixing itself. Eventually all the lumpy stuff eventually will smoothen up because of the mixer itself. But this is what you want. And eventually what happens is it becomes a whole nice thick paste, depending on how even your surface is, etc. It'll start spreading across the whole unit as a whole, and what you end up getting is the pure fountain. And so normally things that I recommend, obviously, things that I recommend would be something like this, okay? Perfect for dips, perfect for, you know, anything else that you can use. Again, you can find some with heaps of cheese in them. You can find some with less cheese. It's up to you and your flavor. Like I said, if you want to make it a bit of a kick, you can add Tabasco sauce. You can add any other form of sauce that you like. Other people will dip in buffalo wings and all that kind of stuff. Again, depending on your flavor and what it is that you eat and cannot eat. I'm looking for skewers because I don't have any. I probably left them at the party. But normally, obviously, with fruits and things like that, I'll just use this chopstick as an illustration. There's that chopstick. As you can see, the heat as well, it's steaming. What would normally happen is, obviously, if this was just a skewer, it needs to be thinner than this toothpick size, but you get the idea. You'd normally say, if this was something else with cheese, maybe you had a bit of meat or something and you just wanted to dip it in there, or you had crackers or something like that, you can dip those easily. Like I said, nachos, things of that texture, not a problem. But now for things of things like if this was chocolate or something, I would definitely use the skewer. I would say put a strawberry, I would say put watermelon, I would say put anything else, and then just dip it at the base and you're good to go. So what usually ends up happening is, because so many people are dipping and doing whatever it is that they're doing, kids sometimes are leaning in and trying to get in a dip as well. What ends up happening, obviously, is it ends up creating a bit of a mess everywhere. And so what you're trying to do there is prevent it from becoming too dirty for its own good. That's all I was saying, essentially. And as you can see now, slowly but surely all the lumps are now going in the sauce. I just was checking just to make sure everything is good to go. But all the lumps and everything start to go away because it gets mixed in over time. So don't worry too much, especially when handling things like chocolate or so, because eventually it does smooth over. You probably will get the machine running, you know, an hour or something before, and this by that time starts to get hot, and so do these. So with that being said, I'm going to stop the machine for now, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you guys how to clean the machine, because I think that's a very important aspect of it, and then packing it away for another day. So be right back with you. So I'm back, spill and all. What I'm trying to do here is show you the kitchen, or at least show you the sink. I'm going to switch the unit off, which, remember, like I talked about the knobs, always make sure things are facing up. The fountain is still fountaining, or still sprinkling. But like I said, when handling it, make sure when handling this base, just make sure that it's not hot. So I would recommend maybe letting the machine switch off for a few minutes and then proceeding to actually handle it, you know, otherwise it will probably burn your hand, because again, this has only been running for a few minutes in real time compared to probably when you're using it, and obviously the liquid starts coming back down. But by then, oops, that's the light, by then the unit itself should be done, you know, by 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes it should have cooled down enough. What we're trying to do here is show you guys how to do it without immersing it in water. And that's the most important part, because obviously when handling electronics, things can go wrong very quickly. Especially the next time you plug it in, it could, you know, trip the power in the house or something along those lines. But generally, like I said, to remember, try to give that a twist. Let the thick stuff spiral out. So, I'd recommend starting off with the base unit. Hot water, preferably. Scalding, preferably, but also, you need to be careful because, again, burning your hands, right? Who wants to deal with it? So first, start off with decent heat, decent pressure. Again, people's sinks may vary. So I would say start off with that. For now, I'm just getting stuff where I can handle. Initially, for these purposes, we're trying to just make sure that water is getting in where we need it to get in while you can actually touch it. Obviously, if you turn the water up to a lot hotter, you won't be able to touch this metal and it might actually be able to conduct the heat, so you just have to be careful. So now that I've turned up the heat a little bit, just be careful when handling it. Oops. Again, being a fountain, you can spray everywhere. You just want to make sure that the water is hot enough to actually remove the cheese and melt it and let it drip off. Almost there. It's not scalding, but it's close enough. And again, your pressure is going to vary, and you hope that, add some more heat. It's probably not going to be good for my hands, but what do you do? Oops, it's quite hot. Because we want that cheese that's in there. Y'all can see that? We want all that to get up. We want all of that up. So first, this is just a rinsing process. I'm not saying that this is complete. This is just a rinsing process. Put that aside for a second. Now for the plastic, the pebble. Because again, this is a lot of flour, not so much cheese. If it was cheese, it would probably move off a little bit easier. But because I had to thicken it for illustrative purposes, I made it too watery for the pebble. Okay, so we've obviously got a bit of flour in between. Alright, so we're going to put that aside, and then we're going to take the unit itself, give that a clean. So normally they say that depending on what it is that you're pouring down the drain, sometimes they say it's not good to pour stuff down the drain. You're better off taking a plastic bag and actually putting the stuff in a plastic bag. But to me, this is basically just liquid stuff anyway, so it shouldn't harden up in the sinks too much, I don't think. Again, I could be wrong, so you don't have to take my word for it. I'm not a plumber. Some people will tell you, hey, cool down, harden up. Wait for the chocolate to cool down, harden up, and then pour it down the drain. Everyone is going to tell you different advice. Again, also depending on the type of pipes that you have and the type of plumbing you have in your house, it's going to differ. But for me, just to make sure that things are good to go. As you can see, the water is scalding, so it's not water that you'd muck around with, so definitely don't let a kid try to do this. Oops, the plug is down there. It's a sealed plug, so that's a good thing. My apologies again, older house, smaller sink, so things are not always going to be perfect. Now, because obviously there was a lot more material in there that it settled at the bottom, as you can see, stuff had started to burn a little bit. Now I just happen to have a plastic fork. I'm just going to use it to move that. That's probably a bit of cheese that had just settled in the edges. So I would say I'll get that out as much as you can. I'm using plastic in order not to scratch the finish. You don't want to stuff up stainless steel. I would have said here use steel wool or something like that, but no, I wouldn't recommend it for this. I wish that came off. I don't think it does. It feels like it does, but I don't think it does. One side, two sides. Side number 3 is not budging. So maybe that's one of those things. But just for illustrative purposes, I'm going to keep moving stuff. the side so that we can keep this clean. Oops. Because we're trying to avoid immersing the unit itself in water. We're just trying to clean the unit itself internally, but without immersing it in water. Because again, power being an issue, next time you plug it in, it might blow up. You wouldn't want that on anybody, you know. Okay, so again, tiny sink, very claustrophobic. We'll sort out the spill, everything else. Get that out of the way. Because again, things get crazy, you can't control it. Like I said, live TV. Who knows, I might edit it out, or I might leave it in. You never know, we'll see. But that was the spill. But like I said, when you're having a function, make sure napkins on deck. That's everyone, I always advise you, because things get messy, and especially with chocolate, it's too much. So anyway, with that being said, what I'm going to do with this, I'm going to use just your typical scourer, nothing too fancy, nothing too abrasive. Okay. Want to be warm enough. Again, space is not so much for me to work with. That's the right amount of heat. Okay, so just need a bit of detergent. In most cases, depending on what you are cooking, it might not be as oily or as sticky, so you might not need to do too much. Remember what I said, be careful, because some of these, they might be good for the most part, but the 1 out of 2 or 3 might not be filed perfectly. So what we want to do is just make sure that you don't cut yourself trying to put something in there. I'll show you maybe a better way to do that, and then we'll work it out from there. Probably was not dressed up for cooking, but it happens. Like I said, you find yourself in situations, and things happen on the fly. So what we're trying to do is just make sure the unit itself is clean. I'll shove this sponge in there in a minute just to make sure it's all round, but for now I just wanted to make sure bits and pieces that we wanted to touch on are pretty good to go. Okay, so in there I would recommend either using this and actually putting it in there and twisting it as you go. It might be too thick for it, so maybe it's not happy with that, but you get the idea of what I'm trying to do. Okay, let's try it that way. Oops. Nope. Okay, so we'll try paper towel in there, but something has to go in there. We need to get that clean. So maybe, like I said, just push it through the other way. You'll find at least a piece of it might agree. But remember what I said, be careful, just as you get to the bottom, we don't want that cutting you. Because like I said, some edges are a little bit tough, but that should essentially do the trick. And as you can see, that's gotten rid of most of it. There's maybe a bit of cheese sort of still lingering in there, but for the most part, we should be good. Let's see if I can add some more. Again, you know, I figured I would give people the full experience, because again, I'd like to lie to you and tell you these things clean themselves, but they don't. Usually you create a mess just to make sure that people have a good time. So hopefully that should be all good. Hopefully. I'm hoping that I got all of that cheese that may have been stuck in there. And let's rinse it out and find out. So this unit, this part of it I would say is fairly clean now, because we soaked it down right here, live in front of everybody, so it's not going to be as oily anymore. And I would even say leave a bit of oil on there if you can, maybe even spray some oil after wiping it down, just maybe to prevent rust or something like that. I don't know with this type of steel, oops, spilling water everywhere. Again, smaller sink. What do I do? It's not your typical thing that you normally would wash. Let's wait and see. I didn't get quite all of it. Move that out. Move that out. Again, everyone is going to vary. Some people might have the bottle, if you've got like a baby bottle brush, that will probably be the best fit if this doesn't quite do it. But I'm just trying to give you an idea of how to make sure that it's all clean in there, because that's the only place that I can see where there's a bit of cheese. Otherwise the rest of the unit is okay. Cheese stuck in there. Maybe, just maybe, it's acceptable to maybe put a wire brush in there. I'm not sure what the manufacturers will say. I'll have a look later and advise. Because what we want is to make sure that this is clean and safe for use for the next time you want to pop it out and use it, you know what I mean? So I wouldn't want to make people sick. This is how salmonella and all that kind of stuff spreads by people not taking precaution. You've got to push, and if you can twist it in, get a bit of a twist. Better, much better. I think that if that doesn't do it, then it was never meant to be. But yeah, so water is hot enough. Clean as much as you can. Rinse out as much as you can of cheese there. Otherwise, I can see for the most part that's fairly clean. Hopefully y'all can see that. So make sure everything top down, nothing is sticking or standing, with cheese sticking up at the top. And I'd say we're good. I'd say we're really good actually. Very surprised by that. Just making sure one more time. I don't see anything too crazy in there. Not that I can see. Like I said, I wouldn't want anyone getting sick. Okay, so I think we're good to go. And again, on the day, obviously, on the day before you use it, maybe wash it again if you feel like, hey, maybe there might be something left over. But like I said, if you go in, try to be as thorough as I did. So that's one done. Let that to dry for a minute. We're going to go through with this as well. So it's a bit of hot water. There's the sponge. There we go. Just have to make sure that's pretty much that way we can cover all layers. And also remember that there's the bit that connects, so always make sure that inside of that is clean. You've got a small fork or something that you just can pick in there, toothpick, something like that. Shove it in there and just make sure that it's all clean in there. And then, you know, you put that aside. And the base unit itself, I said that you try to be careful and not actually put any sort of scourer in there. All we do is just make sure that those edges are nice and clean using manual force. Again, you're using a scourer, so you should be good. What we want is we want the unit looking spick and span. So if you feel like you can't quite get into some small bits and pieces. Use whatever is available to you. Just probably not the metal stuff, because the metal stuff will scratch too much and cause so many problems in the unit that it might not look presentable. It might look older than what it really is. So to get all that cheese or anything else that you've been making out, it's very important that people don't get sick, you know, handling food. Fix up all that, get any bits and pieces that you can find. There we go. There we go. Again, I wish this could lift off, because I think that's the only thing that's missing here. Ah, there we go. It does lift off. Thank you very much. It must have been stuck for some reason. Do you know how easier that is now? Oh my gosh. You have no idea. No idea. It's so much easier now, because now you can really, you know, take a fork. Again, I'm using a plastic fork, so please don't use, you know, metal fork or something, because we don't want chips of metal or something, kids eating that and creating problems for them later. So that will actually get in there and just get all the extra excessive gunk out, if there's any gunk. Again, depending on what you're cooking, it could be cheese, it could be chocolate, it could be anything. You just want it to, just something flexible enough that you can sort of put it in there, scrape it all out, and then you should, in theory, have a clean unit. Ready to go for the next occasion. Okay. So, like that. Now, is that cheese or is that something else? Again, getting a little bit paranoid, just making sure. Yep, bit of cheese in there. This is me being super thorough. Again, everyone is going to vary in terms of how much they want to do or how little they want to do. So you just sort of beware. But again, like I said, if you've got kids and you know, you just want to make sure people come out all right, please take your time. Don't try to rush. Make sure you clean every nook and cranny. And then from there you should be able to box it away, or then put it back in its box, or you can put it in your kitchen somewhere for ready use if it's something you're going to use occasionally. But yeah, I would say that's cleaner than what it was. Okay, so now in terms of, you know, the external bit, because again we've spilled a bit of stuff here. In terms of the external bit, what I would recommend, once again, paper towels. See, I would recommend nice clean paper towel. Again, I don't know much about, you know, if these things rust or not. I think stainless steel should be good, but in case, maybe spray a little bit of light oil on it or something, just to make sure, you know, things stay clean. But like I said, try your best to sort of dry this out as much as you can. Try my best to get as much as I can in there. See, well, we don't want is scratching it too much. That stuffs up the finish. It makes things look corroded or things of that nature. We don't want that look. In there, once again, I would recommend putting something in there. I would recommend this. And remember what I said, be careful, please. I'm going to emphasize that, because I almost sliced myself on one edge that wasn't quite filed properly. So, but yeah, so essentially, you just have a dry unit now, and that's what we want, you know. Just want to make sure it's dry and ready to put away for the next use, and then again next use maybe give it a bit of a rinse, If you're not sure, you know, give it a bit of a rinse, make sure that everything is on point. And then you should be good to go. Try that up in a minute. Okay, so that's one part done. So that's one part done. This should be all good. Just make sure in there, like I said, make sure places like those are clean, because they're just weird places. That again, things can just end up getting dirty in there. Don't want anything germinating in there and creating problems for you later. You want those areas clean. Stick whatever you can in there, just to make sure that, you know, it's nice and clean. Again, I'm just using a plastic fork just to make sure it's nice and neat in there. See, sometimes you get gunk. We don't want any of that. That's the part that you all need to be careful of, is just making sure the gunk is clean. We just want to make sure that there's nothing outstanding in there. We want to make sure that this is healthy for people to use and continue using for years to come. Especially when you've made a decent purchase, you wanna prolong the usage. Yeah. So now it's coming out clean. You can rinse it again. You can do whatever it is. Like I said, rinse it before use. Just run some hot water. Again, you lose nothing. Just a few minutes of your time. But I'd rather that than people getting sick and people going to the ER, you know. So let's just be careful, folks. Got a bit of tissue stuck in there. Paper towel. There we go. It's out. Perfect. But yeah, there you go. Nice and dry. Everything is nice and clean. The unit itself is last. That's going to need a wipe both internally and externally, because again there was a bit of sauce made it to the side. But this gives you an idea of what we're trying to do and why. So all this is what we're trying to get rid of. So first I would recommend that you wipe the inner bit first. Make sure that's nice and dry, so that we know that, you know, we're good to go and we can just focus on one spot. Alright, see, that's what we want. Back to looking like new. We'll deal with that in a minute. So what we need is, I would even say, let's look for something that's a bit more chemical. But no, it's all good. Just use some good wipes. Just not too wet, just wet enough. Just enough. Okay, so you might need a bit more than that. Really. Alright, so what we might do is use the sponge. So I'm trying to get the outer part of the unit to not be exposed to water, because what we don't want is water going in under the vents. That's what we don't want. So just a dab of that. And then just quickly probably do under that as well, just to make sure, because again that's where we're handling the unit from. So okay, you don't want to switch off the switch, you don't want to wash too much around the switches, because we don't want the labels to fade, so that you don't know what you're using. I mean, obviously after a few years of you using this, you'll be familiar with the switches, but for somebody else, maybe a guest who comes to the house and maybe they're helping you, that might be a bit tricky. So I think there we go. I think that we're cooking with gas now. So much better than scratching it up. Some more. That should be alright. A bit wet, just a fair bit, just enough. There we go. I think that that's much better now. Feet are good. Don't have any chocolate. That's the bottom of the unit. Yeah, I think I'm better. I'm happy with that. But like I said, back to getting it looking the way that it was. So all the switches, where the reflections are, we like the chrome finish. We want everything to look on point. Just making sure that between the switches there's no chocolate or anything left over. But we good. All right. All right. Now, it's clean up time. I'll clean up a bit more and then come back to you and then let you guys know what I think. And then I'll talk about the other unit as well. All right. So real talk. Between these two units, I say this is about $10 or $15 cheaper, but well not worth it. This is trash. I'm sorry, I hate to say that. I hate to say that about other people and their products. Stay away from this. This is cheaply made. It doesn't melt anything. It doesn't keep the things cool enough, as you'll see in the videos, or as you've seen in the video by now. Just not worth it compared to this. And even just looking at it, this alone, without even the rest of the things attached to it, is twice the size, and probably, 3 to 4 times the size, sorry, and probably just would do so much more and last you a lot more than this. This is plastic, whereas this is actually proper stainless steel, and it's quite heavy. Decent motor. Just sniffing it out just to make sure everything is running smooth. Because again, you can smell some of the oil and everything, from an engine running for a minute. I used this for about 3 or 4 hours yesterday, and obviously just now, just for demo purposes, we did it for about 30 minutes or so. But 100%, this is well worth your time for $10 more. Good postage, at least in Australia. I can speak and say that I've had a very good, I haven't actually left a review on his channel or his platform, which is Amazon, but very good delivery. I think sometimes even 24-hour delivery, sometimes even less than that, depending on where you are in the metro area. A little bit further out, maybe a day. But you're going to get good bang for your buck for this. So good, in fact, that I actually bought 2. One would be for all the savory stuff, and one will be for all the sweet stuff. So 100% buy yourself a pack of skewers, and again, always use a bit of napkin. Again, even in editing, I would have said all the cooking instructions and everything, I'm going to lay it out for you so that you guys have a better idea, better understanding of how to use these units better. Especially, these units, not this. So you'll get a better understanding of how to use this unit better. Chocolate especially, always keep it thick. The viscosity just needs to be good enough to flow, but at the same time you don't want it too thin that obviously the machine cannot swirl it up. So we want it to have a certain amount of viscosity, but also not too thin. So with that being said, this is definitely well worth your money. This, don't get finessed. Thank you very much. Peace. Wouldn't you know it, I finish recording and then I find a skewer. So I'm not sure if these skewers come in with the packet or these are one of the skewers that I found at the party that we were using with our cheese dips. But these skewers are really good, because you've got a good handle. You stick in a grape, you stick in maybe a grape, watermelon, whatever it is that you want to stick in. It's a good size skewer, bigger than my hand, because I'm holding the camera in hand. That gives you an idea. So, and again, my hands are not the smallest hands out here. So that gives you an idea anyway of how to use the machines and what else you can achieve with it. With that being said, my little buddy here is sleeping. He's now back home with me. So he's going to sign out the video for me. Thank you very much. Be talking to you soon. Peace.